So in our last video, we looked at adding sound effects to our story so that we could have the requisite rim shot and laugh track when the joke is done being told. And that's a definite improvement in the joke. I'll wait for the sound. But I want to add another step now. Right now, my actors are pretty darn boring, right? They just stand there, right? If we watch this, Abby and Devin just stand there and don't do anything through the whole thing. And I want to add some motion. I want to add some action into the story, more than just the speech that is at the top of the page. And so I'm going to do that by experimenting with the costumes for each of these. One of the reasons I had you use Abby and Devin was because I actually think they have a really nice costume base. And for both of them, these are their default costumes that they come in with. But if we actually go to Abby and we look at her costume, you'll see that Abby actually has 4 different costumes. The one she's in right now, where she's just standing there. She's got this one where she's, I don't know, kind of thinking a little bit. She has this one where she's laughing a little bit. And this one where she's, I don't know, still just standing there. A little different from this one. Here she looks happy and standing, and here she looks a little bit mad. I don't know. So we're gonna play with these a little bit. She's got her costumes. She's got this idea of laughing and standing there. And so we're gonna use those costumes in the story for Abby so she can laugh at the joke at the end. And then let's look at Devin so we can see what he's doing. Notice that when I clicked on Devin, because I was in costume mode before, it stayed in costume mode. I have it Devin's kind of traditional, what he came in as a default, where he's standing there waving at us. I've got this one where he's thinking a little bit. Actually, that can be fun in a knock-knock joke because he's the one who says, "Who's there?" So we can have him think about it for a little bit. We have this one where he's laughing, and we have this one where, I don't know, he's yelling at us because he didn't like the joke. I don't know. We're not going to use that one. We're actually going to use all 3 of these, though. We're going to go ahead and use the laughing and the thinking costumes as well as the regular costumes for each of these. And so let's change this up a little bit. I want in this joke for the joke to say, "Knock, knock, who's there?" And Abby says, "Philip." And, if you've ever been told a knock-knock joke by a kid, or when you tell knock-knock jokes, right, you almost always are like, okay, what's the punchline going to be? What's this thing? Before I say Philip who, what's the punchline going to be? So I'm going to actually do that a little bit. I'm going to separate this out. I want knock-knock, who's there, Philip. And then as soon as Abby is done saying Philip, I want Devin to change so he's thinking about that idea of Philip a little bit, and then goes back to this before he says Philip who. Okay, so we play with costumes again through this looks menu. You've already played with changing the costumes. We did that with animations. And so the names of these aren't really particularly helpful on their own. Remember that it was Devin A, Devin B, Devin C. A is his normal mode, B is his thinking mode, and C is his laughing mode. So the idea right now is that after she says Philip, before he says Devin who, I want him to switch to his thinking mode. So we're going to switch to costume B. We're going to have him wait 3 seconds and think about it for a little bit. And then we're going to have him change back to his costume where he's just standing there. And so let's just do that for a little bit, right? So we start the joke, places everybody, knock, knock, who's there, Philip. He thinks about it for a little bit. Then he says, Philip, oh, my timing's off, right? I screwed this up a little bit. And so, first of all, I screwed up Abby's timing. Right now, when she's sitting here waiting for him to say, Philip who, right, that's what this 2 seconds is, that she's no longer just waiting 2 seconds. Devin actually now has 5 seconds of action there. He thinks for 3, and then he says Philip who for 2, so that actually changed this wait to 5 seconds. This is a little bit problematic, right? It's not a perfect metaphor to life. In life, we don't wait some number of seconds before we we respond to people's questions, we know that they're going to talk. The problem so far with what we know is there's no good way to say, wait until someone so-and-so is done with speaking. And so the best way with what we know right now is just to do this with timing. And this is actually, your students won't have a problem with this. You won't have a problem with this. It does get a little complicated over time, but we need to adjust that wait 2 seconds. And so now we do this. Knock, knock. Who's there? Philip. Philip who? Oh, see? Problem with timing. You have to remember where all the timing goes. And so now I got to go back to the backdrop. And I have to say, oh, wait a minute. I added 3 seconds of time. This now goes to 14. Okay? And so now we get knock, knock. Who's there? Philip. Philip who? Maybe that 3 seconds was a little long. And that's much better. Okay? Well, all right, let's add in the other costumes. I said for both of them, let's add in the idea of, at the very end, when they're doing their laugh, let's switch to their laughing mode. And I think that was the C costume for both of them. So Abby's going to switch to laughing, and Devin's going to switch to laughing. And the nice thing is we don't have to adjust any timing because that's the last thing for both of them. And so now we can do the whole joke. There's not a good fast forward mode on here when you need to just jump forward. And now they're laughing. Right? Perfect. And so it works really well. Wait a minute, it doesn't work really well. Notice what's going on right now. They're both in their laughing mode. Right? That's not what we want. This is just a reminder. As you adjust things, you got to keep thinking about what goes on in your Places Everybody action. Right? Because in my script right now, we're changing costumes. Either the costumes end funny, or even if I just stop in the middle, right? So watch, if I start this joke, knock, knock, who's there? Philip. And he starts thinking, and I'm going to hit the stop sign right now. So I stopped the program, and now I rerun it. Right now notice that she's in her laughing, and he's in his thinking. It's all messed up. So part of Places Everybody really needs to be, go back to my very first costume. Right? At the very beginning of things, make sure I go back to my opening costume in my opening position. Same thing for Abby. Make sure I go back to my opening costume in my opening position. This is something that a lot of the other Scratch tutorials and Scratch videos and things don't emphasize, but is something I've always felt was really important to emphasize. Have a Places Everybody that resets everything to the way it goes. And you pay attention whenever you add new stuff. Make sure that you're fixing so that no matter where we are in the play, no matter what happens when the program ends, whether we end in the middle of the play, like this, right? So I ended with him still in thinking mode, doesn't matter. When I say Places Everybody and action, he goes back to his starting mode. And that's much better than trying to remember to clean up at the end of the play, of your play. Always do your setup at the start of the play.